Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to answer one of my most frequently asked questions: how I would spend bonds inside World of Tanks. Now, what exactly are bonds? They're Wargaming's most precious resource. You get them for participating in ranked, you can get them very rarely for participating in in-game events, and everybody gets a certain amount of them each year depending on how long you've been playing in the well-deserved reward, which just came in last month. Now firstly, let me clarify, as the rarest currency inside the game, how you choose to spend them might be different to how I would recommend spending them. Look, some people maybe take this game a little bit too seriously and want to be as competitive as possible. Other people don't really care about things like that. Maybe they want to spend their bonds on a funny tank or a style for one of their vehicles. So at the end of the day, while I'm going to be giving recommendations in this video, remember that this game is meant to be played for fun, and you should spend your hard-earned currency however you choose. So firstly, what are your options for spending bonds inside World of Tanks? Well, if you go into the store and you click the bond tab at the bottom, there are a variety of different things you can spend your bonds on. Firstly, directives. I think this is one of the poorest choices for spending your bonds because you can earn them through a variety of means inside the game, and it's just micro advantages. Maybe you'd want to use them for when you're trying to push for a third mark, or alternatively, maybe in some ranked battle scenarios. But I always have a huge supply of these because I will only use them when I am doing one of those two things. Next, there are the option to be able to purchase styles for your vehicles. This provides no advantage compared to just painting the vehicles with your regular camo, or alternatively using the styles that Wargaming seem to give out willy-nilly inside the game. But again, if you want to have the such camo, much wow, then don't let QuickyBaby stop you. Next, there's equipment that you can purchase. This is definitely one of the best ways to spend bonds inside the game. You can either purchase things individually, and they cost between 4 or 3 to 5,000 credits a pop, meaning that to equip some tanks, you're going to be spending 15,000 bonds. One of my most recommended ones to pick will be the venting system. That will give you 8.5% crew skill in any slot. That is a tremendous advantage in any situation. So with regards to bond equipment, what tanks would I recommend putting them on? Well, clearly, tanks that are completely limited in one individual area, such as the EBR 105. Because I have bond optics and bond vents on this vehicle with a good crew, I can actually manage to get up to 453 meters view range. The EBR is not intended to be able to get view range that high, and it's what enables me to be way better than any free-to-play EBR or any EBR that doesn't use bond equipment. Bond equipment on a tank like this is just outrageously good. Alternatively, if tier 10 tanks aren't your thing, then maybe you want to put them on some of your tier 8 premiums. I personally put mine on the Progetto because I love playing that thing in front line, and having a vehicle that is much stronger than all of your opposition will help you to be able to progress towards your goals. Another little tip that I have is that if you want to purchase multiple pieces of equipment, then they do have a variety of bundles. For example, the combat kit, which gives you a gun rammer and vents. It costs 9,000 bonds, and that's a good opportunity to be able to save 1,000 bonds compared to purchasing the pieces individually. But also be warned that quite often you can get pieces of equipment as reward for participating in events like ranked, or alternatively spending your well-deserved tokens. And so while you can always get pieces of equipment, you can't turn them back into bonds. And you can spend bonds on things like vehicles inside the special tank store. Now, there's a variety of vehicles here. I think the 121B is possibly the most competitive out of the 3 tier 10 choices. Go and check out my full tank reviews on the other 2 vehicles if you're interested. Moving on to the tier 8s, there's a variety of competitive vehicles here. I think the Kryslavsky is really fun for a player who wants to play aggressively. The Patriot is just an absolute fabulous all-rounder for everyone. You can't go wrong with the Patriot. The IS-5, if you want to just rush forwards and hold down. Stay tuned for a video that I will be releasing this month where I review every single tier 8 premium tank, and as these are premium tanks, you can go and get my full opinion there. Now, purchasing tier 8 premium tanks for bonds, I would only recommend doing that if you don't already have a premium tank or 2 premium tanks, or at most 3 premium tanks. Because when you think about it, how many tier 8 premium tanks do you even need? Unless it's the new best one, which has power crept all the others, there's no real point of having more than 2 or 3 of them. There's definitely a point of having 1. there's a really good point of having 2 in case that first one is stuck in battle because you had a bad round and you want to go and get in another one to be able to maximize your credit income. But once you go past 3 or 4, why have you got 4 tanks stuck in a single game when most games only last about 5 to 10 minutes? But who am I to judge? So those are the way that you can spend bonds without playing ranked. However, not a lot of people realize that you can still access the ranked battles items even when ranked battles aren't going on. Simply click the banner here and then you can go through to the ranked store. And there are currently 4 different vehicles that you can pick for your bonds. There are 2 premium tanks here, the Skoda T45 and the Charlemagne. Both of those will make decent amounts of credits on top. I wouldn't really recommend picking the Skoda T45, but the Charlemagne is a good choice, but it just doesn't really feel that special compared to a lot of other tanks. Again, go and check out my full tank reviews if you want to know the whole story. However, there are 2 reward vehicles that don't make a lot of credits, but what they do is absolutely dominate their games of World of Tanks. Those are the Concept 1B and the Kampfpanzer 50T. Now they cost 20,000 bonds. You can earn a discount on them for up to 60% if you play a lot of ranked battles even after you've managed to finish and get inside the leagues. But to be honest, for 20,000 bonds, I think the Concept is a pretty good deal. Now, to get access to the bond store, you're actually going to have to get to Division 2 inside ranked, which will undoubtedly put a lot of people off because you have to be reasonably good at the game to be able to achieve that. Now, if you're worried and thinking it's an incredibly hard thing to do to get to Division 2, it's actually not too bad. You simply have to play 20 placement games in your tier 10 tanks. You're going to get some rewards along the way. And then you're going to have to get through Division 3 to be able to get to Division 2. Now, considering the ranked battle season lasts for 3 weeks, at first the competition is really steep. And so if you're just wanting to not complete the entirety of the ranked battle season, but just get into Division 2 to be able to access the tanks that I've just talked about, I would thoroughly recommend starting maybe a week in or possibly even 10 days into the event. And then the competition will be much lower and you're going to have an easier time to be able to get through. It's still going to be tough. Ranked is hard, no doubt. But I really think that the majority of World of Tanks players are able to get through to Division 2 and earn the privilege of spending 20,000 bonds to purchase the Concept 1B. And purchasing it would be my most recommended thing. And here's why. And here's why I recommend spending bonds on a vehicle like the Concept 1B. Now, this isn't what I would recommend somebody does if they're a completely fresh player and they don't have a premium tank. The best way that you can spend your bonds if you don't have access to any Tier 8 premium tanks will be one of the Tier 8 premium vehicles, so you can start earning credits inside the game, which I bet you need a lot of. However, it's unlikely that you get enough bonds to be able to purchase a Tier 8 premium tank unless you've really grinded your way up towards Tier 10. You've played a lot of it, because you can only earn bonds now by playing your Tier 10 vehicles, or alternatively a Tier 9 premium like the Stridsvagn K, but that kind of defeats the point of purchasing your first Tier 8 premium, right, if you've already got a Tier 9. So that is what I would do first. Get yourself a Tier 8 premium tank. After you've got yourself a Tier 8 premium tank, you've really got a choice. Do you want to get something like a Concept? Do you want to get yourself something like equipment? Again, it's just a matter of preference. Probably I would recommend actually boosting your Tier 10 tanks, especially if you're a competitive player, at least 1 or 2 of the most competitive ones you have, so that then you can do better in ranked to be able to earn more bonds and have an easier time of being able to progress through. Then after that, arguably you might want to do a Tier 8 premium tank with bonds so that you've got your best credit maker inside the game that you can go and grind to be able to make credits even easier than before. But don't underestimate just how darn dominant the Concept 1B is. I'm playing today on my Plays for Free account because I managed to finish ranked last season, or shall I say, not the season, the last year. You know what I'm talking about, the previous year of ranked. And I managed to get, I think it was silver, gold, and silver on my free-to-play account. And I did that without using any premium consumables or firing more than, I'd say, about 10 or 20 gold rounds throughout the entirety of it. And that gave me the Concept 1B for free, so I didn't even have to spend the 20,000 bonds. But just because you didn't get this tank for free doesn't mean that I wouldn't recommend purchasing it for 20,000 bonds. I honestly think this is the best vehicle that you can purchase freely inside the game. It's one that I would recommend to absolutely everyone. So in this situation, I figure out that this tortoise that I'm playing against in this very nice matchup is actually somebody that I cannot take for granted. And I know that that tortoise will have absolutely been very disappointed that they did not keep the Concept 1B tracked, because if I was playing against a Concept 1B and I was in a tortoise, I would do nothing more than want to be able to engage that cheeky Tier 9 American reward vehicle. The Concept 1B has just helped me so much on my free-to-play account in every way. When I'm trying to do mission marathons, it's just an absolute joy to be able to go and jump up at Tier 9 and be able to do some of the missions for mastery. I've used this tank to save myself hours and hours and hours of time to be able to complete the free-to-play challenges, or the marathons, whatever you want to call them. Because you want to, when you've got to try and finish top on experience or top on damage or top of this, then you want to be playing the most competitive vehicle. And it's very likely that the kinds of players that you're competing against, if you've got to be that number 1 out of 15 players, are going to also be playing the most competitive vehicles like this one. However, irrelevant of whether you want to purchase this thing to help you be able to complete mission marathons, to be able to get through them faster, to earn a bigger discount off Tier 8 premium tanks, or alternatively, if you're just more of a casual player, I think that the Concept 1B is still a sterling pick for everyone. So I guess this Conqueror thought that he could manage to pincer me. No, unfortunately you can't. I bet you he didn't expect the Concept 1B to have the mobility of a medium tank. When you've got this thing fully set up with your field mods and also with a turbo, the top speed limit of this thing is something stupid like 54 kilometers an hour. And this tortoise, wow, this tortoise is giving this game a really good go. We are down by a tank, we are down by a couple thousand hit points, make that 2 tanks now. And this tortoise with 3 marks in the second highest DPM tank in the game, they clearly are something to be reckoned with. Somebody who takes the second highest DPM tank in the game and is able to do more damage than 95% of the other players, or 95% of the damage of the best player in the last couple of weeks, is somebody to be reckoned with. So we're going to make our way through and try and just flank this tortoise. I realize that that heat round unfortunately didn't quite manage to hit the tortoise at the correct angle, and you can see my despair where I shake my camera in frustration, and oh dear, it's all going wrong now. But I'm not sure if that was a heat round or an APCR round that I fired at the T20 there. So why would I recommend purchasing the Concept? Now you know the reasons for this vehicle, why I would recommend purchasing it. Well, obviously it's the best, but why is it the best? It's got great frontal armor, it's got incredible medium tank mobility, it's got a turret that has incredible gun depression that you can hold down in front of pretty much most vehicles. Just don't expect it to always ricochet everything, but most of the time it is. And this mobility on this tank is just simply outrageous. This tank should not be as fast as it is. I think you could easily remove 5 or more kilometers an hour off this vehicle and it would still be an incredible tank. And to have APCR rounds as standard with 1,478 meters a second shell velocity allow you to just feel as if you're almost playing a tier 10 medium tank at tier 9, and the only thing that you've really got lacking is kind of the camo rating of the vehicle. That's why with the new Equipment 2.0 setup on this tank, I'll have one where I'm using vertical stabilizers for those close quarters combat situations, and one where I'm using a gun rammer, vents, and a turbo, and then you're able to just zip it around the map. Heavy tanks were not meant to be able to just deal with that tortoise and then go up into this bush location to be able to provide the flanking fire on the Ferdinand and to lock down this scenario. The amount of heavy tanks and tank destroyers that I loop rings round with a vehicle like this is simply outrageous. And because this is a reward vehicle, you're pretty much guaranteed, even if you spend the bonds on this. Let me say, while you're pretty much guaranteed, I'd like to add the caveat that Wargaming have done stranger things in the past. But due to their history with not changing the Chieftain and not changing the Object 279E, I would be incredibly surprised if they ever nerf the Concept 1B. And so for spending your hard-earned 20,000 bonds, why wouldn't you want to spend it on something that is just a tremendous advantage? Now let me clarify. Buying this tank for 20,000 bonds is not going to simply propel you up to winning 50 or 60% of your games in World of Tanks if your average win ratio before that was significantly lower. You still kind of have to know occasionally what you're doing in the vehicle, but it will give you a tremendous advantage and definitely elevate your average win ratio a few percentage points. Nevertheless, if any of you out there are currently in despairing at the prospect of having to play ranked and having to grind through to be able to get this vehicle, I know that I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just trying to communicate how my brain works on the matter and why I would get the concept 1B, but I understand that not every player is like me. And so for players out there who have no interest in participating in ranked, no interest in playing tier 10, you could get yourself an AE Phase 1, and while you're not going to be nearly as good as the concept 1B, you're still not going to be a bad tank. And considering that you can get the AE Phase 1 just inside the Battle Pass with I think it's either 6 or 8 tokens, or is it 9 tokens right now, that is as cheap as chips compared to investing all of that effort into begetting the concept 1B and also spending 20,000 bonds that you could fully equip at least 1 or 2 tanks with bond equipment and make those vehicles more competitive. Bonds are always something that I still completely disagree with in World of Tanks with regards to equipment and tanks. I know that Wargaming want to try and encourage people to play tier 10 and want to try and reward people with creating a special currency that everybody will jump through hoops to be able to get. But I also want to clarify that I strongly object, I always have done and I always will do, with the idea that Wargaming create a currency that is almost purely there that only the best players can consistently earn to be able to then make their vehicles better than everyone else, or alternatively purchase tanks that are just frankly better than other tanks that the rest of the player base are able to get. And so, while you can feel a little bit guilty and you can be a little bit disappointed in World of Tanks in the way that Wargaming try to encourage us to play and give the best players advantages, I think you've not got to hate yourself for taking advantage of the system in place and not wasting your bonds and not using them in the best way that you possibly can, but more hate the game for having, at least in my opinion, ignorant methods to try and encourage play and to give advantages to players who probably want to be the best because they play well and not the best because they're playing the best tanks with the best equipment. So an ace tanker here for the concept 1B, 1,664 base experience. It's quite tricky to get an ace tanker in the concept 1B because obviously the best players are playing the tank, and usually the best players playing this tank with its outrageous statistics make it quite challenging to do more than 99% of other players have achieved. We also get the high caliber medal for our 6,700 damage, a steel wall medal, because why shouldn't an outrageously fast tank also be able to block more than its hit points in damage? And a Confederate for killing, or not killing, but damaging 6 tanks that were subsequently killed by our allies. And we didn't even really fire that many heat rounds here, so we make a decent profit with a premium count, and we would have still made a profit without. So once again, I want to conclude how I begun. While what I did was just try and lay out a roadmap for how you can become as competitive as possible and use your bonds to give you the easiest ride, so to say, in World of Tanks, I want to clarify that the bonds are there to have fun with. It's a game. You spend them how you think you're going to have the most enjoyment out of them. And just because a sweaty nerd like me wants to get their hands on the most powerful tier 9 tank and use it to crush the meta and be able to gain more and more and more to be able to make my life easier, doesn't mean that that might be the most fun thing for you. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. I really hope this in-depth look at bonds and how I would recommend spending them was useful for you. If it was, give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know in the comments whether you agree with what I've said, whether you disagree with what I've said, and how you would recommend players spend bonds inside the game. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Saturday, I've just got a small thing that I'm doing tonight. I'm on stage 10 of the Mission Marathon, so if you want to come and see me play without any of the advantages on my free-to-play account, I'm live grinding through to be able to finally get the Alt Pro to AMX 30. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.